Hello, internets. So, have you ever wondered what is the most absurd conspiracy theory out there that is probably true? In this video, I'm going to answer that question by suggesting that it is something I like to call the Pied Piper conspiracy theory. Named after the fairy tale where a Pied Piper uses a flute to just kind of magically force children to follow him around, kidnapping them in order to lead them away from the village and into the woods due to their unpaid debts that the townspeople owed him, that they basically stiffed him on. And I'll be playing some Snake, Rattle, and Roll and doing this as a game rant because I don't really need that much visuals to understand this subject. It's a silly little game. Anyways, it's a shame because very few people talk about this theory despite the fact that it's most likely true, and even more interestingly, this is a conspiracy theory where simply knowing about it increases your resistance against it because it's a PsyOp. And trust me, you will know what I mean by that by the end of this video. So to explain just what exactly the Pied Piper conspiracy is, basically it's the suspicion that alphabet agencies like the CIA or the FBI and whatnot are often putting out intentional disinformation. And we are not talking the usual disinformation like war misinformation that we already know about, because we already have plenty of well-established evidence that alphabet agencies have lied for political gain about those things several times in the past. Those things aren't even a conspiracy theory, those are just facts. No. The Pied Piper theory goes quite a bit deeper than that. It's a little bit edgier, a little bit more out there, and it presents the claim that many of the other more unrealistic conspiracy theories, such as, Flat Earth, or the reptilians, or Q, are in fact being pushed by these agencies via paid shills and other methods in order to try and lead people away from any actual meaningful evidence of government corruption into the dark forest of psychosis. Or to put it simply, it's the theory that the state deliberately wants to waste people's time on total horseshit, and does this by amplifying some of the more popular conspiracy theories out there. And now, you might be wondering, why in God's name would they want to do that? Why on earth would the state agency secretly fund reptilian, flat earth shills and stuff to shitpost on the internet for them and whatnot? After all, if you can trick people with false information, why not just use false information that makes you look good instead of look bad? Isn't it more beneficial to the state to just spread propaganda that the state is good? The answer is simple. The concept of controlled opposition. Propaganda to make people love corrupt institutions only works on the type of people who are afraid to question narratives. Those kinds of people, the Reddit midwit types of people, the type of people who think believing mainstream corporatist news makes them more intelligent for doing so. But there will always be people who are naturally suspicious, who won't just take your word for it through a simple propaganda headline like, experts say, oh, the expert said so, therefore it's true, academic consensus. There will always be people who are divergents from the norm. And those people are a problem for corrupt institutions, because if they dig hard enough, these divergents can eventually discover some very real shit. Such as the fact that many market regulations are not designed to protect or grow the economy, but are designed to keep legal monopolies and stifle competition. Or the fact that there are extreme disconnects between what kind of crimes are statistically likely to happen, or just general things that are statistically likely to happen, and how likely the corporatist media is to report on said happenings. You'll notice that oftentimes that likelihood does not have anything to do with the statistics behind it. These divergents, in other words, those of us who dig through statistical data to really learn the truth behind what's going on in the world, start to, let's just say we start to notice patterns. And the patterns we often notice don't exactly line up with the narratives we see on the news, or anything close to it. And that's a problem for them. So what's a corrupt government institution to do when people start waking up to their bullshit? That's where the controlled opposition comes in. Controlled opposition basically means a false adversary. Say you are a corrupt high-ranking official, and you know your day of reckoning is coming. You know there will be a revolution, you can't stop it, but it is coming. But there is one thing on your side. You are still in power. And because you are still in power, while you would prefer the day of reckoning to not come at all, there is a next best thing for you, and that is to use your power to control that revolution. You hold a fake revolution to make people think that they are fighting against you, but in reality they aren't doing jack squat to meaningfully dethrone you at all. And that's where the benefit or motive comes in for the state to fund shills to push conspiracies like the reptilians or flat earth. People who believe in these theories are very certain that they are fighting against a corrupt, global, new world order run by demonic space aliens or whatever. And according to the Pied Piper conspiracy theory, that's exactly what the feds want them to believe. They want them to think that they're actually fighting against some corrupt global institution. Because by tricking people into chasing random rabbit holes that aren't based in any solid evidence, that never lead anywhere, the people who fall for these psyops are effectively ideologically neutralized. Their insanity makes them easily ignored by the public at large, forcing them into a life of seclusion and obsession. Just ask yourself a simple question. What the heck have any of these flat earth or reptilian types actually accomplished? Have they created any meaningful think tanks? No. Have they proven anything? No. Have they caught a single reptilian for us to study? No. Have they provided any good evidence at all for flat Earth? Well, they sure think that they have, but no, they just keep making up gish gallops of nonsense that then get disproven, and then they make up more nonsense, and that just kind of cycles and goes on forever. These people have accomplished absolutely nothing. Therefore, what these people are doing actually aids the state, because they're just wasting their own time. They're preventing themselves from meaningfully going after government corruption by going after a rabbit hole that basically just amounts to an ostrich sticking their head in the sand. It would sort of be like if a kingpin of a large crime organization knew that a brilliant detective was on his trail to fully expose objective evidence of his crimes. What's one of the smartest moves for that kingpin to do? Simple. Lead a trail of extremely complicated false evidence for the detective in order to lead him to nowhere. Make him waste his time on total nonsense, and the kingpin no longer has to worry about him. That, in essence, is the Pied Piper conspiracy theory. Now, you might be asking, what proof do I have that the alphabet agencies would do something like this? Objectively, I'm going to just freely admit that I don't have a smoking gun. That's why I'm being honest in saying that the Pied Piper conspiracy theory is simply more likely to be true than it is likely to be false. I'm not going to try and lie to you and pretend like I know something that I don't actually know, like the reptilians or flat earth pushers will do. The Pied Piper is a fun theory to think about and consider, but shouldn't be taken too seriously. This is all just an alleged thing that the feds might be doing, can't really say for sure. So then the real question is, why do I believe it's probably true? Well, to find that out, let's just put it against the list of ways that conspiracy theories can be vetted that I made a couple months ago. First off, the number of co-conspirators for them to pull off a Pied Piper operation. Honestly, not very many. You would really only need a small team of about 15 or so well-paid agents dedicated to making high-quality content to push bogus disinformation on the internet, especially if they are well-funded and have access to bots and whatnot to amplify their shitposting and videos thousands of times over. So they wouldn't have to worry too much about getting found out as a result of too many people being in on the scheme. A leak from small sizes is therefore not likely to happen. Second of all, profits and motivations. As I already pointed out, the state absolutely would benefit from this kind of operation. The more divergence they trick into wasting their lives chasing complete bullshit, the less bad actors from the government have to worry about ideologies that actually do pose a threat towards exposing their corrupt behavior. It's almost priceless. I mean, just look at QAnon. Even some normie YouTube channels like the Juice Media can call that one out. It's obvious. Trust the plan, do nothing, remain passive. Who benefits from that, really? Third, on the subject of media manipulation, well, the Pied Piper conspiracy is in itself a form of information control, so it automatically passes that one. Fourth, on the manner of gish galloping or similar reasoning errors, you certainly won't run into any of those when considering if this type of operation is underway. And of course, there is Occam's razor, and the biggest one of all. Considering all the insane information that we do know that alphabet agencies like to publish, is it really a stretch to say the state would go the extra mile? Is it really a stretch to say that they would also fund crazy conspiracy theories and truly lead American citizens down the path of psychosis? Is it really a stretch? I don't think so. It just intuitively seems less likely that they wouldn't do this. They have the means, the motive, and again, we already know that they have done similarly shady disinformation campaigns. There have already been quite a lot of confirmed times that the US government intentionally spread bogus information in order to mislead the public. We'll just name a few. There was Lyndon B. Johnson spurging out about the Gulf of Tonkin attack in order to justify war in Vietnam, where US ships were allegedly attacked unprovoked. Of course, in reality, we have no idea if the attacks actually were unprovoked, or anything really, or even if the attacks even happened at all, we're not sure of. Just another bullet point in a long list of war propaganda alongside WMDs in Iraq from Bush and the Iran-Contra conflict, and so on and so forth. All lies. And then of course there was COINTELPRO, which was basically a series of lies and underhanded tactics the FBI used in the previous century. Of course, COINTELPRO totally ended, and the FBI totally doesn't do stuff like that anymore, of course. Right? I mean, that's just a total conspiracy theory, to think that COINTELPRO tactics are still being used by the FBI, even though they admitted to it beforehand, and even though a lot of them actually were pretty effective. But no, they totally don't do that anymore. That's just a crazy conspiracy theory. So clearly, the Pied Piper PsyOp definitely would not be something that they would have any kind of moral objections to, and isn't too far off to what they're already doing. But most importantly of all, the Pied Piper is a warning. It's just another good reason for why you shouldn't just blindly trust some of the more psychotic and unhinged conspiracy theories out there that don't actually have any good evidence or reason to believe in them. Of course, the people who believe in them think they have evidence, but they don't. I've seen a lot of their content on BitChute, and in many ways, these people are just as damaging to the pursuit of truth and exposing actual, real government corruption as breadtubers who mindlessly believe all government propaganda without question. Two sides of the same coin, essentially. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about in my previous video, really, on leftist racism, and the Great Identity Politics scam. That's another example of a Pied Piper operation. Now, again, do I have evidence that it was intentional? There's some evidence there that that was intentional, yeah, definitely. But the main thing is that it was effective. It was very, very effective at tricking leftists into obsessing over racial identity politics in order to get them to completely ignore government corruption. So why does the Pied Piper work? Well, it's really simple. Because people have limited attention spans. You can't just watch every single little video and read every single little idea out there these days. There's millions of ideas out there. I mean, do you have any idea just how much content is uploaded to the internet every day? And that's just not even counting all the stuff that was published in the underground in the previous century. And this is a kind of well-known psychological fact. I mean, it's not even a psychological fact, it's just obvious. You can't pay attention to everything at once. It's an unrealistic expectation, and that's why it's effective. So anyway, that's all for now. Just a little short video about the Pied Piper. I recommend keeping it in mind because it is, in fact, a very good reason to not just blindly believe bullcrap that you hear. If you liked the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and all that. Till next time.